Hey everyone, welcome back to FSi DFS for a 9-game Friday slate here on DraftKings. Really interesting slate. I feel like I'm going to be making some bold calls here, but I got some of the data to back it up. But we'll go through the sheet and the rankings and pitchers and all that kind of stuff. But before we do, please hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. And we're trying to still get to 5,000. We've kind of stalled a little bit, but we're so close to 5,000. Hit that subscribe button. I know a lot of you viewers are not subscribing. We get all the analytics. So yeah, let's just dive into the slate right now. So your top pitchers above 9K, you have Gray, Cease, and Singer. Singer, I'm not really too interested in. Really against Texas, I feel like we're just gonna toss him out the window. Just a brutal matchup, again, facing off against Texas. He doesn't really have too much of a ceiling towards him. He's going to be walking a couple of guys. He's going to get you the strikeouts, but I feel that there's so many other pitchers that you could have interest in, both, higher salary than him and cheaper than him, where I just don't have any interest in Singer on this slate. Gray, congratulations, you won the White Sox lottery for pitching today. So Gray is at home facing off against the White Sox. He's already, even if he wasn't facing off against the White Sox, he's been the best pitcher so far amongst these guys over the course of the season. His strikeouts through the roof so far, 10.1K. I think if you're playing cash games, you just have to put him in as your SP1. I could totally understand the fate of him in tournaments, and just because, again, there's a whole lot of pitching options on the slate, mainly in this 8K tier that we'll talk about right after we talk about Cease. I really like Cease in this spot, and I feel this is more of a GPP spot than anything. I don't really think he's going to get a whole lot of ownership facing off against Arizona. We know what Cease brings to the table. He brings a very high upside, which is fantastic for tournaments. He also brings you a slightly limited floor. Now he is facing off against Arizona. If we look at Arizona against left-handed pitching, I know Cease is a right-handed pitcher. We'll get there. Against left-handed pitching, Arizona's offense is one of the best in all of baseball. They got 143 WRC plus. It's been, aided by an inflated BABIP, absolutely. But low strikeout rate, high ISO, they just cover all the categories. They've been one of the best teams in all of baseball offenses against left-handed pitching. Against right-handed pitching, however, they're one of the bottom 5 teams in baseball in WRC plus. The strikeout rate, it's still low comparatively to the other teams down around here, but this is the biggest gap of any team against the split of left-handed versus right-handed pitching. So while I feel like some people might be scared off facing off against playing a pitcher facing off against Arizona, I'm not really. I feel like he's going to be able to more than dominate Arizona. We just saw George Kirby. I brought up this exact same thing in our chat and in the Discord that, I kind of like Kirby tonight because Arizona really struggles against right-handed pitching. And what do they do? 7 innings pitch, no earned runs, 12 strikeouts. Do I expect the same thing to happen? No. You can't really ever predict a stat line of that caliber by any means. I still think that Dylan Cease is more than capable of getting close to 27 to 30 DK points and have a nice ceiling game against this Arizona squad that really struggles against right-handed bats. So looking at the sheet, Gray, I still put over Cease, and then it's just a gap in Singer. Singer's almost a tossed away, no interest in my opinion. Going into the mid-tier, all 5 of these guys I would have interest in. Kirby is the one where I have the least amount of interest, and I feel like that's kind of a bold call based on what he's been able to do so far this season, but we'll talk about that in a moment here. But you have Bybee, Blanco, Houck, and Stroman. I put the strikeout numbers against these guys just because I wanted to see where they all shook out over the course of the season so far, because I really like all of their spots. Bybee, pay attention to the rain. There might be a little bit of rain threat in this Cleveland game, but we'll figure that out, closer to lock. But Bybee at 8.5K against the Mike Troutless Angels, there's just really nobody that should be scaring you at all. Bybee, he had a couple of games where didn't look great at all. against the White Sox, but also against Boston. And Boston's really good against right-handed bats. They have a lineup just full of lefties that can crush the ball and do well. So I'm kind of throwing that one out as well. And then the other 3, 8, 9 strikeouts in each of them. And I think he's going to be able to get close to that 7, 8 strikeout number again against the Angels, who again should not scare you at all. Blanco, he's got a dream matchup facing off against Seattle in terms of strikeout rate. Seattle is the highest strikeout rate team against left-handed or against right-handed pitching. I could just pull that up right here while we're talking about it, since I already had the tab open up for the previous comment. Oh, come on, did I hit it? Yeah, I did. Nope, that's left-handed. That's left-handed. See, yep, got the wrong tab. Here we go. Maybe. Fangraphs is acting a little slow today. There we go. Seattle, highest strikeout rate team against right-handed pitching by a wide margin, by over a whole percentile. So that's pretty impressive there. So I really have a lot of interest in Blanco just because of the home run or the strikeout upside that he can have. And Blanco has pitched very well. He's been able to really reduce hard contact. Like the barrel rate and hard hit against him is extremely low. Last start out, he was pitching in Mexico City, and he was still able to do well in a stadium that was seeing home runs fly out of there. Like that Kyle Tucker home run, barely any contact on the ball, and it just traveled, went out. But I really like Blanco here in the strikeout upside that he can have. And then Houck, he's had the best strikeout numbers amongst these 3 guys so far this season. He's facing off against Minnesota. Minnesota is strangely on a 10-game winning streak, but their offense is also really starting to ramp it up a little bit, but they are still a team that strikeouts quite a bit against right-handed pitching. The team that does not strike out against right-handed pitching is Houston. So we got Stroman, Bibee, Blanco, Houck, Minnesota, Seattle, LA, Detroit. Let's see where they rank in terms of strikeout rates against righties. Seattle, LA, Minnesota, Detroit, all of them top 8 teams in strikeout rates. I feel like all 4 of these pitchers are in dream matchups and dream scenarios. Who is not? Houston. 17% strikeout rate, lowest in the entire league. So while I do think that Kirby, he's been the best pitcher so far this season amongst these guys, I think he's just got a really, really tough matchup facing off against Houston. And it's kind of correlated all along. Like Arizona, we talked about how much they struggle against right-handed pitching. He did fantastic. Colorado, one of the highest strikeout rates against right-handed bats. Cincinnati, one of the highest strikeout rates against right-handed pitching. Like, there's Cincinnati, there's Colorado. Like, Boston, they're a top 10 team. He's played them as well at 24.1. So the teams that he's done very well against are the teams that, struggle against right-handed pitching, and they strike out a lot. The teams that he doesn't do well against, Toronto and Cleveland, are the teams with low strikeout rates and do well against right-handed pitching because it's wild. So I'm going to be really low on Kirby. If it does kind of shake out that, ownership is going heavily towards Kirby just based off of like his last outing and, his super cheap salary, like sub 8 for Kirby, I think it's a little ridiculous. But if it is like ownership is going to be pretty high on him, I'm going to be much, much more lower on the field because of that. 28% strikeout rate, it's nothing to scoff at. Like, that's solid. That's solid for sure. But I think that there's many, many, many other options that we can go to at pitcher. In terms of the cheap tier, it's ugly. Maybe Sears is like the only guy I would truly have interest in, but I don't even think we have to go down into this category. I feel like you can really just kind of stick with these top 6, 7 pitchers. But Sears is facing off in this just awful matchup of Oakland versus Miami. 2 bad pitchers, Sears versus Weathers, against 2 bad offenses. I mean, who knows what this game's going to be? I could see this game being like 2-1 and just awful all around, but I could also seeing it be like 9-8, and it's just an absolute dream scenario in game stack for DFS, but just because both pitchers and both bullpens are just nothing to have any interest in really at all. So pitching, I think is really intriguing. Kirby, I'm like, I don't want Kirby today. It sounds so crazy saying that. I'm still trying to convince myself, even after like seeing all the numbers. But I don't have interest in Kirby. And then Cease, I really am interested in Cease, and I'm probably gonna be overweight on him in tournaments. Going into the bats, there's not a lot of bats I'm like yes about. Like there's no one team that I truly feel like sticks out. I like a whole bunch though. Boston, Atlanta, St. Louis, Cleveland, Dodgers. I kind of had to like stop myself with St. Louis there. It just, they've struggled so much this season. I still hate putting them into like the top category, but they've just got such a nice matchup. Facing off against Keller, and Keller, like, he is kind of on pitch count. I don't expect him to really go farther than like 3 or 4 innings, which means there's going to be a whole lot of that White Sox bullpen, which is a bullpen that we're going to be picking on all season long. So St. Louis, while they haven't really done much of anything at all to start the season offensively, I still feel that we know you got to have some interest in them. Donovan, Nootbaar, probably be where I'm starting. Burleson's a cheap guy there. Hopefully Wynn is in the lineup. He's our cheap guy who's been doing very well. Contreras, absolutely. Maybe do a wraparound stack if you are going with St. Louis. But I'm scared to even use the word stack with St. Louis. I feel like it's just kind of pick out, 1 to 2, maybe 3 guys who are cheap and can provide you a little bit of salary relief. But I don't think we need too much salary relief here. Boston talked about how they have a lineup that's full of left-handed bats who can really do well against right-handed pitching. They're going to be facing off against Chris Paddock. This guy's just he's past his prime. He's not what we remember from years past. He had one phenomenal game. It was against the White Sox. Like, how much are you gonna look into that? After that, like, he really doesn't strike out too many guys at all. I don't expect Boston to really struggle here at all. Man, I'm really struggling with keeping the Boston team lineup here. And they're very affordable, and this is one of the reasons why they ranked higher up on my list. I did have them over teams like Atlanta and the Dodgers, who I really like, but they're just so expensive, and they're going to be tough to fit in with the pitchers who are 8K, 9K, and even Gray, who's over 10. Whereas Boston is much more affordable. It's much easier to fit into your lineup. Colton Wong, 3.3K. I don't know what has gotten into him, but he's hitting 351 on the season. He's also hitting 5 home runs. The guy is doing crazy numbers here, and is still super cheap. So if you are going with Boston, I would recommend putting Wong into your stacks there. Devers, 5.1K. He struggled a little bit to start the season, in terms of like, he's not generating as much offense in terms of home runs and RBIs, with his place in the lineup and all of that. So it's probably going to be coming around here. We are getting a little bit of a reduced discount because of that. But so I think that he's going to be just fine. And yeah, a lot of lefties in Boston that I do like. Atlanta facing off against Stone for the Dodgers. Stone's another guy who, he has a little bit of command issues. Doesn't really strike out many guys at all either. And, Atlanta's just too good of an offense for any kind of pitcher like that to have really any sort of success. But I did bump Atlanta down a little bit just because they are so expensive. Cleveland, I really like Cleveland. I just feel my hesitation with Cleveland is that, 1, the rain. 2, they're a team that over the past handful of years, and we've talked about this dozens of times in videos, is they play a lot more of like the small ball game. They're going to be hitting singles and doubles, trying to get some stolen bases, and really just kind of bleed you to death with paper cuts. They don't have as much, we're going to hit 4 home runs in this game. We're going to help you take down a tournament with a major stack. So that's like another hesitation. They're also just kind of expensive. Ramirez, Naylor, Kwan, Jimenez, all 4.7 and above. Like, you're kind of looking into that, more expensive Atlanta and Dodgers stacks. Whereas the cheap guys, they don't really have too many cheap guys that I have a whole lot of interest in. Brennan, maybe Freeman, but like, I don't know. If I am going with Cleveland, I'm sticking more towards the top. So I do have them ranked a little bit lower than Dodgers. Again, I think that there's too good of an offense. I don't really have any interest in the Atlanta pitcher. So that's kind of where things stuck with that. GPP, again, if you really think that Kirby is going to struggle a whole bunch, Houston, maybe they could be a great leverage stack. Houston, very, very low strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. Like, I know their offense has not really matched anything at all their record has not matched up to what this team is capable of. Maybe it is, I don't know, but no, this offense is still way too good. They're still a top 10 offense in the entire league. So I think that could be really interesting in GPP. San Diego and Texas as well. Texas going to be facing off against Brady Singer. I mentioned already how I don't really have much interest in Singer. But like the Texas bats, again, a lot of left-handed bats I do like, but they also just have the power and the upside to them, which I really think can bring home a GPP win. And then San Diego on the other side. Here we go. San Diego on the other side facing off against Ciccone. Ciccone, he's got nice numbers. Maybe people go that route, but not me. I don't believe it. He is allowing a lot of harder contact, so I do think that the San Diego bats could be a little bit more intriguing. He does allow a lot of ground balls, so maybe I bump Houston over San Diego in my tournament rankings. It's going to adjust throughout the day based off of more stuff that I read and numbers that I look into. That's kind of where things shake out for now. Miami, Oakland, they're going to be cheap teams that you can go ahead and target if you want to. Kansas City is another cheap team. Obviously, you have Bobby Witt, and he's going to be super expensive, but guys like Melendez, Velasquez, those are all guys who are going to be affordable. They can put in your lineups, even just as one-offs if you want to go that route. So this is kind of where the slate breaks down. Again, I feel really weird just saying like I don't have any interest in Kirby, and I'm like super high on Cease and his upside against an Arizona offense that does have some pop in their bats for sure. And then as far as bats, like I really think you can rearrange these top bats in pretty much any order, and I wouldn't argue with it from there. So good luck in your contests. As always, thank you so much for watching. We'll have another video out tomorrow on Saturday for the Saturday slate, so come back and check that one out. Not sure if it's going to be me or Mega. I have a feeling it might be Mega, just with some prior commitments from me. But if I don't see you till Monday, have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the warmer weather that is coming around across the nation, and we'll see you on in the video tomorrow.